Hey guys, Pete from CrunchTimeCoaching.com, and just finished watching a pretty impressive display of tennis by American Sam Querrey taking out the legend Rafael Nadal in Acapulco. A great tournament, which I want to talk a little bit about, but it was amazing because Rafa loves that tournament, played it a lot when it was on clay. Now it is a hard court, which I think is a good move, especially since they go right into Indian Wells. So I think that was a very smart move by the tournament. But Rafa's never lost a set there. We know he got to the finals of the Australian Open and looked like, okay, now he's building up his confidence, he's building up his game. So who would have ever predicted that Sam Querrey, who just got smoked by Ryan Harrison in Memphis, would come out and beat all these players? Took on Kyrgios right after Kyrgios beat Novak Djokovic. And then he goes out and he's got the tall task of playing Rafael Nadal, who everybody started to say, okay, Rafa's back to his old form. He's playing great. So you're thinking that this is kind of a shoo-in because you got Rafa who's getting hot. And what has Querrey done lately? We know he can win big matches, though, obviously, because he took out Novak Djokovic at Wimbledon. And again, he showed today that when he's on his game, he can really take the racket out of your hand. That first set, there was not much Rafa could do. In a two-set performance, Querrey is able to put up 19 aces. And it really kind of started me thinking, wow, I think we've all underestimated how big his serve is. You have people who you're always thinking about, like Kyrgios, big serve. You just think, okay, Kyrgios, huge serve, huge forehand. Ivo Karlovic, and different players on the tour who have a serve that can literally, Ronich, when they're hot, can just take the racket out of your hand. And when I was watching that first set, there was not much Rafa could really do. Querrey was just hitting these amazing serves, and he was going big on the ground strokes. And one thing that I don't remember him being able to do as well, I always knew he had a big serve, big forehand. But what has really improved, or at least tonight it was on full display and during the whole week, was his backhand is nice. I mean, he was smoking that backhand cross court, very strong cross court, and then was also taking up the line. And Sam was a lot better mover tonight than I remember him being. And it seems like even I noticed that as the whole theme to the week, that the big players these days, they've really come up with some kind of training regimen that has these big guys really figuring out how to move very well on hard courts and defend. There's very few one-dimensional players out there on the tour like you used to have. I remember when I was growing up, you had people like Michael Chang who were just like great defenders. They could run down anything, but as far as having other types of weapons, not so much. Like his footwork with his weapons. Now these guys just have multiple weapons, and everybody's weapon is becoming their defensive skills. So I think the game has never been so good. Let me know what you guys think about this. As far as offense and defense, we're having huge offense these days, but the defense is maybe even more impressive than the offense to me. So let's get a little bit more into this match. The first set, I really don't think there was much to analyze as far as Sam just took the racket out of Rafa's hands. And to me, this sounds weird, but hang with me. If he just did that the whole match and the match score was like 6-3, 6-2, Querrey won, I would not be Sam Querrey, sorry. I would not be as impressed with that as I was with what he had to do to actually win, because then he could have just been hot the whole match and Rafa couldn't get into the match and, impose his will, which is one of Rafa's intangibles, his ability to bring his will into the match. And if Rafa was never able to do that, to me, the win would not have been as impressive. But Rafa was able to start imposing his will. There was a big game to me in the second set where it was 1-all. Rafa had to fight off some break points, and it was a huge game, and Rafa was able to hold serve and go up 2-1. And that's a good lesson for everybody out there, too. If you guys don't know me, my name is Pete from CrunchTimeCoaching.com, and I'm an online instructor. So I like to kind of point out lessons you can learn. Is Rafa at 1-all knew how big that game was. So he started to really, give a lot of come on, a lot of fist pumps. And when he won that game, he jogged over to the chair, right on the changeover. Really kind of got to start skipping. You could tell he's really trying to get himself motivated and trying to show Sam, like, all right, you're playing against Rafael Nadal. I'm not going anywhere. I'm about to dig in here. And so it'd be good if people can really recognize the big moments when you're out there playing your match. Recognize the big moments and make them maybe even bigger than they are. Rafa was trying to make that 1-all game. 1-all in a set is not a very big game, but for Rafa, he knew that was a big game to win, and that kind of got him into that second set to where Rafa started to do more what he does so well. That's one of Rafa's greatest skills too, is he's playing Sam, who's obviously got a much bigger game as far as this firepower, serve, and the forehand, and even his backhand, he was hitting it bigger than Rafa. But Rafa's serve is not as big, but it's big enough to where he can get an advantage on the serve, be able to get a little bit of a weaker return, and then stay on offense the rest of the point, not go into a defensive position, especially on big points. That's what Rafa does really well. He's a great defender, and he's known so much for his defense, but he's so good at staying ahead of the points on his serve, and he was able to do that more and more in the second set, and kept it even going into fourth. It was 3-all, a 3-all game, and no, I guess Rafa was up 4-3. I'm sorry, Rafa was up 4-3, so he could have gone up 5-3, which makes it even bigger. And there was a huge break point that he had, and he was able to wear down Sam a little bit to where Sam started to miss more first serves. Rafa started to figure out a way to get in rallies. One thing, again, you have to give Rafa credit for, he was on the return of serve. I'll just take this here. He was starting to move all over the place. He'd move back some to try and return a serve. He'd move up in the court. Sometimes he'd move his body over here. So he was really trying to figure out a way of what style return was going to work. How can I just get myself in the point and get Sam to hit more balls and think about what he's doing here, what he's about to accomplish. And he started to do that at that 4-3 game, and he got Sam to come up with kind of a mediocre volley cross court to where Rafa's on the run, and he's got a backhand that he could have, if he could have just made over the net, he probably would have passed Sam down the line. But instead, he nets the ball. Like, I thought that was a huge point when he missed that, because that's usually not a shot that Rafa misses. And then Sam was able to ace his way out of big trouble. But Rafa still was hanging in there, and he started to get back. One thing that Sam Querrey was doing very well is he was hitting his out wide slider on the deuce side, and it was opening up the whole court. Well, Rafa started to figure out a way to get that ball back and make Sam start to make some errors. So this is where the victory for Sam really was impressive, because Rafa was starting to impose his will. He was starting to make Sam think about the match. Sam was starting to make some unforced errors. Rafa was starting to get in more points and then turn defense into offense. And so when you see that happen, you start to see it happen slowly, and you're thinking the more this match goes on, advantage Nadal. Eventually he's gonna wear down Sam. Sam's gonna start to think about this, and Rafa's probably gonna pull out a close second set and maybe even cruise in the third set. That's the way I started to see the match shaping up there towards the latter stages of the second set. But Sam didn't back down. I mean, it was amazing. And one thing that was an interesting stat, and James Blake pointed this out. And by the way, how cool is it to see James Blake announcing? I think James Blake is going to have a long career in announcing. He's great. Everybody likes him, super likable guy. I think he's going to do a great job. But James Blake talked about how Rafa Nadal, as far as moving into the front court, anywhere in front of the baseline, he was only able to do that at the time. And I think Querrey might have been as high as 41%, if I'm correct on that. So I thought that that was a very big stat. And they go into the tiebreaker up 3-2, and he's got Sam running. So you're thinking, okay, this is where Rafa kind of gets you on that treadmill, and Sam's going back and forth, and he's got to be 6'5", 6'6". He's a big boy, and he's running side to side, and then he runs and hits a smoker forehand down the line winner out of nowhere. And I was watching, I go, wow. And then, so he did this kind of back to back, and then the match was over. Then the next point, he hits a great out wide slider and an absolutely firebomb forehand down the line if you're watching that match. And I was like, wow, this guy is stepping up in the biggest moments of the match. Then I don't know if he did this on purpose, but I thought it was kind of interesting. Is Rafa served the ball in, and then usually one of the things that Rafa does so well against this competition is Rafa will hit, and it's a great play for people out there watching, and it will work very well at the recreational player if you're a rec player, is Sam hit a very high loopy return to Rafa's forehand. Now, this is usually the play that Rafa likes to do to his competition, and most of the time it goes to his backhand. Well, you could see the ball actually got out of Rafa's strike zone to where he mistimed it, didn't quite have the timing or the strength, and he launched the ball long. So kind of out Rafa there. And then he did it again on the very next point by getting into a long extended rally, and he made Rafa miss a wide backhand. So he did a lot of important things in that match to show how he was playing very mentally tough this week, to where Rafa got him missing shots. He still kept it together and was able to come up with big aces and forehands and backhand winners. Then in the tiebreaker, he was able to play defense. Rafa had him on the ropes, and he hits a down the line winner out of nowhere. Then he had to stand toe-to-toe with Rafa and get an extended rally, something not a lot of people are comfortable doing, especially in the biggest stages of the match. And he hangs in there, keeps cool, and wins that point, and then serves it out. So super happy for Sam. Who could have seen this coming? Earlier in the week, I said, hey, if you pick the two winners, I'll give you a free course, my Serving A to Z course. And there were a couple people who picked Rafa and Murray, and you're thinking, okay, that's a pretty solid. They're going to win, because there's no way Querrey's going to beat Rafa, and he did, and it was great. And it was just a good day for tennis, I think, because even Rafa in defeat again shows why we love him so much. I love Rafa. He is probably, I don't want to say the best losers, because he's not a loser. He's an ultimate champion. But what I mean is he's gracious in defeat. He's able to smile. He's able to put things in perspective right away. He's able to immediately recognize the moment that this is big for Sam. And I think he was generally happy for Sam. He had a pretty content smile on his face when they were in the award ceremony. He came and he really spoke to the crowd. His acceptance speech for losing was actually longer than Sam's speech for winning, which I think says a lot about Rafa. And so he was smiling. He really let the crowd know how much he appreciated them. He congratulated Sam. When Sam came up and gave props to Rafa and said what a great champion Rafa is, Rafa had a very warm smile for Sam. And I thought that was great to see, and great for tennis. And that's why I love tennis so much, is I think we have the classiest athletes leading the way. We didn't always have it, but we do now. And couldn't be happier for Sam. What do you guys think this means for him going into Indian Wells and then to go into Miami? Will Sam be able to keep this level up? Is this I mean, he obviously has, again, the tools for a match. You know, he played a great match against Novak, but then he went away for a long time and has had some really bad losses. and then he comes out and does this all week. Can he sustain this level of play? And will we be able to see him more when he plays these tournaments, to where it's like the quarters, and there he is in the quarters and the semis and maybe some more finals? That would be really, really good for American tennis. And also, what do you think this means for Rafa going forward? I would say if he won today, certainly a confidence booster after getting to the finals of the Australian Open. And then if he were to win this, you're thinking, okay, Rafa is like fully back. But to kind of lose a match in his kind of backyard or his territory, because it's a tournament he's never lost a set on, and then he loses in straight sets in the finals, does this hurt his confidence a little bit, or is he actually feeling better? Is he back? Is he the old Rafa? Are we going to see him competing for the Grand Slam finals again and winning on a more consistent basis? Or is he still just a little off to be able to do it consistently? Because you can see more and more that I think part of his problem has been is that he does run up against some people whose game on that given day is just too much for him to take. Rafa has a harder time. He's got a massive forehand, but he has a harder time than some of the other pros hitting through the court to where that ball is going low over the net, and when it hits, it's gone. You know, Rafa's great strength on his forehand is it's got plenty of height over the net. He doesn't miss a lot of forehands. And then when it hits the court, it really kicks up at you. But these taller players, when they're feeling good about their game, they don't mind it coming up around their shoulders. Sam took a lot of those forehands that Rafa was hitting up, and he was smoking some backhand winners cross court and down the line. So he looked like he liked some of those Rafa forehands, especially if Rafa leaves him a little short. So let me know what you guys think about this. Before I tune off, I do just want to congratulate Andy Murray winning Dubai and beating Verdasco. It was a very strong performance from Murray. He looks, it's interesting, this early time of the year, you're trying to figure out, okay, who is the best, who's the hottest, who's going to be the strongest player throughout 2017. And Murray looks tough. He looks so fit. The guy looks fit. Like, he is in incredible shape. To me, what he is he's a backboard with variety and power. Like, you can't hit through him nowadays. He's becoming, he's always been a great mover, but Novak kind of set the standard to me 2012 up until, 2015, 16. But now Murray is almost saying a new standard for movement. It's crazy the balls he's getting to and how hard he's hitting out of those positions. But then, he's also got the beautiful slices and drop shots and angles. And so he's this backboard with a variety and power. That's what he is. And he's also got an amazing return. Verdasco put 75% of his first serves on the court today, and he won 41% of those points. So in general, the general rule of thumb is that the pros really look to impose their will on the second serve, to where someone can be playing and winning, 60 to 70 to 80% of their first serve points. And then if the opponent, if Murray, someone like Murray or Djokovic could start to win and make them only win like 40% of their second serve points, then that would be a sign that it's going to be a tough day for them to hold serve. Murray was doing that on his first serve. Verdasco's a lefty. Lefties are challenging. Verdasco's got power. He's got firepower. He's got a big serve, big forehand, only winning 41% of his first serve points. That's a huge statement for Murray to the rest of the field. And just watching him move around the court and how fit he is, he looks tough. So where are you guys at? Who looks to be the favorite now for 2017? Who's got the best form? Who's going to go into the French Open? See, the thing is that's kind of interesting and weird about this time of year is we got a lot of big tournaments coming up with Indian Wells and the Sony Ericsson. But then you go to the clay court season, and that's the next real big deal to where they play the clay court season and then they go and they play that French Open. So these tournaments are kind of like bragging right tournaments, but it's tough to get a real indicator on how they're going to go in and play on the clay. I would think for almost everybody, it's got to bold probably I think you got to put Rafa and Murray as the two favorites if you're picking this far out. I think it's too long to pick. It's too far out to pick. But if you had to pick, being that Murray has found his form and he just had that one hiccup at the Australian Open, but was basically unbeatable towards the end of 2016. Then he wins Dubai and he looks incredibly fit, incredibly focused. And Nadal is starting to get back to finals. You would think those two would be the favorite because Roger Federer, I don't see winning a French Open. I just don't think that's his surface. And as he gets older and as he continues to look to shorten points, that's not going to work. And Novak just needs a break. I don't think he's playing bad tennis. He's just a little hair below where he was. I think maybe focus-wise and hunger-wise, like he's still competing hard, but when he was at his prime, he was so disciplined and so focused and always won the big matches. And I think that focus and hunger-wise, he's just a little off. And so I'm worried about him going into the French for that. So those are my two guys going into the French because that's really the next big thing we need to be looking for. We enjoy these tournaments that are bragging right tournaments, and they're big tournaments in their own right. I mean, they've considered making Indian Wells and the Sony Ericsson. Both of them have been talked about as like, if you're going to get a fifth major, those would be the tournaments to pick from because they're huge. But they really don't have any indication on how people are going to go out there and play on the clay. And that's really the big thing because that's what people really look for is who's going to win a grand, who are going to be the players who are going to win the Grand Slam tournaments this year. Who are those guys? And we already have Roger on the board. Who's going to be next on the board? Let me know. That's how I'm signing off today. Who's going to be next on the board? Who will win the French Open based off of what you've seen so far this year? My name is Pete, crunchtimecoaching.com. I love to comment on tennis, love tennis. And if you like tennis and you like to improve your tennis game, stick around my channel, look at some of my instruction. I really like to teach the slice serve. I'm a lefty, and people think that lefties have an unfair advantage. But I'm telling you what, righties, if you work hard on your slice serve, you see how big it is. Sam Querrey winning a lot of points on that slice serve on the deuce side. Federer's go-to play is that slice serve on the deuce side. So I'm actually going to put, after this video you watch, you can get a 3-part series right on YouTube on the slice serve. So when this video becomes off the live and turns into a permanent video, I'm going to put that video up there. So be looking for that. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. Have a good night and look forward to making some commentary on Indian Wells.